Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Brett Valentine. I'm the director of Fire on the Hill. I know we don't see these that often anymore, director's commentaries. They used to be on DVDs a lot, but nobody really watches DVDs anymore. I thought it would be interesting to kind of share some of the insights and give people a deeper understanding of this film after they've seen it. So here goes. Here's my director's commentary for Fire on the Hill. To start off, I just want to say I've always been a student of film, and I really wanted Fire on the Hill to be a very visual film. It has a certain style to it, but more than that, it has a lot of symbolism in it. And this is one of the first symbols that we see is the train. Another symbol is birds or airplanes, it's images of flight. And the third we're going to see coming up in a second. But really what these images are symbols of the three main characters that we have in this film. You're going to see a lot of these images stacked up against the certain characters that they represent. So see if you can identify what symbol pertains to which character. This is the last symbol right here, the oil derrick. Fire on the Hill is a Western documentary. I always wanted to set out to create a documentary and film it in a Western fashion. I did this because after about 6 months working with these subjects and working with the guys on the Hill, I realized that they really saw themselves differently. They didn't see themselves living in South Central or portrayed in a lot of the ways that the media portrays people that live in that area. They saw themselves as cowboys, and they saw themselves being, lone rangers or figures from Western movies. So I thought it was only appropriate to represent them like that. So I studied a lot of Western films, and there is a lot of influence in this documentary from those films, and this is one of the biggest examples of that. In this opening scene, I wanted to hold the audience's anticipation of where we are and not reveal until the very last moment. I wanted to kind of creep around on these train tracks and really kind of hide the fact of where we are, because it is so unusual to see this group of people here and in a place that, as we are now revealing, is in the middle of downtown Los Angeles. This is the 105-110 interchange, and it is something that has been filmed over and over again in many movies, but I'd never seen a film like that, and thought that shot was an important juxtaposition of the cowboys' lives and the city that's just beyond their horizon.
We living in this little tiny box that says we got two paths to choose.
This is the introduction to South Central. This was an incredibly hard sequence to do. The reason is because we needed to introduce the area, and we needed to introduce how this area had been represented through media for years. But we also didn't want to be part of that representation. We didn't want to propagate that representation. So it was a really tough sequence to cut. We spent years on this, literally. The editors that worked on the film, they all took a stab at this. Mike took a stab at this several times. It was really tough to do, and I think that we landed in a really great place that just not only introduced you to the area, but introduced you to the ideas and the themes that we're going to be addressing later on in the film. This is Guan, and this is actually one of the first shoots, if not the first time that I went to Guan's house. And it was just myself. It was before we had any funding, so it was just me and a camera. Guan and I really got to know each other and really became close throughout all these years. His fiancée at the time, Jonna, right there, and his daughter, Alana. They're all grown up now. They're in school. Alana's in going into kindergarten now. So it was an enjoyment for me to watch this family grow up, and I was really thankful that he and his family allowed me into their home for all of these years.
Daddy, are you ready?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Guan is a guy who had many, many backstories. I mean, he's lived so many different lives. He's lived in Germany. He's been a club owner. He's been a musician. In fact, some of the songs in this film are actually Guan's songs that he let us use for the film. But he had so many different backstories. And it wasn't until the story, or his story, really revealed itself later in the cut that we were able to figure out, okay, we should go with the Germany story.
They assigned me to Berlin, Germany first.
Guan was a soldier and saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. He literally saw a society change overnight. He was at the gate helping East Berliners over to West Berlin. And he saw this total societal change that came about almost overnight.
He showed me that change can happen in all aspects of life.
And so he's really held on to that. And that's something that he's always wanted to see happen in South LA. He grew up in South LA, and he saw the rise of gangs in his neighborhoods and has seen so many friends and family members fall victim to that. And so we thought that, while we were in editorial, that this is a suiting beginning for Guan that will later apply to his story coming down the road.
I was looking for an outlet.
Here we're finally getting a chance to see the hill. One of the things that I get asked a lot when we screen this film is, how did I come across this culture? You know, the hill's been there since the early 40s. But how I came to find this story is I had a friend who worked down in South LA, and she kept seeing men and women riding around the streets in South LA when she would be driving down on horseback. And that was such an image that stuck with me that I had to go see this for myself. So I kind of found cross streets that she had seen them early in the morning, and I went down there early in the morning and just kind of waited around. Unfortunately, nobody came around, but I did find some horse manure, and it was following that trail of horse manure over the next couple of weeks that eventually led me to the hill.
From my environment when I come to these stables. Up here, there's no gang.
And in fact, some of this footage that you're seeing right here is that first footage of finding that place, and that's the first time I'd ever been there. And so it was really a treasure to have that footage, especially, you know, what's coming down the line is this place disappears.
It has really lit another fire in me.
One of the things that I always talk about, meeting Guan, meeting his family, meeting the other cowboys at the hill, really changed my perceptions of the area. I grew up watching the '92 riots, and I grew up knowing that South Central LA was a place that I didn't want to go. But ever since the first day I set foot on the hill and started meeting the people there, I always felt welcomed and like a part of the family. And so that really changed my perceptions of that area and the people. And that's another big reason why I really wanted to make this film.
Friends, we welcome you to one of the most exciting sports of all time.
So now we're getting into Chris's story, and Chris is the bull rider that we follow for the film. Here, is this is actually the first rodeo that we were able to go to after a Kickstarter campaign. And we really wanted to change the tone that we had set throughout the beginning minutes of this film. We wanted to inject it with a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, and there's also a tremendous amount of information that we needed to get across in just a short amount of time.
Kind of enthusiasm.
Going forward in the film, this is the only time we explain the rules of bull riding. We made the assumption that nobody knew how rodeos functioned or how bull riding functioned. So we needed to give the audience just enough information so that they would understand the stakes that Chris is up against going forward in the film.
Ladies and gentlemen, in shoot 3, this is Chris Bird from Compton, California.
Chris was always a shooting star from South LA, and he was somebody that others always talked about. When I was doing research into the film and trying to figure out who to follow, Chris was a name that I always heard, and people were asking me, have you talked to Chris? Have you talked to Chris Bird? That guy's on his way, he's on his way. And so I felt that we couldn't make this film without having his story in it. We also couldn't have made this film without the support of the PRCA. I found out really quickly that just showing up with a camera and trying to film a rodeo was very difficult to do. So I actually went out to the headquarters in Colorado with a plate of baked cookies, and I asked for their forgiveness and also their permission to let me tell Chris's story through the rest of his season. And thankfully, they said okay, and they were really supportive of this storytelling, so I thank them.
In the summer, it get a little wild, you know.
So here we're starting to find out Chris's backstory. And among all the subjects of this film, Chris was probably one of the most difficult in interview because he didn't say a lot. And he's very humble, very cowboy. And so getting information out of him was very tough.
And my uncle ended up getting shot right here, like in front of the house. So much drama, man, a lot of drama. Can't really talk about it. Don't want to talk about it really. When I was young, where we were staying at, it was a drug house.
This, I think, is a good example of how we actually used that quality and his silence and his not wanting to talk about it to really show his character and kind of show how he deals with growing up in this area.
We stayed in a hotel for about a year or two. My mom, she was struggling, but she always provided for us. I ain't never seen him break down, you know what I mean? Made me stronger. Back in the day, it was like a lot of real black cowboys back there. Like that's what Charlie Sampson and all them come from.
Charles Sampson. Remember this cowboy, remember the Bulls. That young man moved that body. Oh, he has beautiful balance, doesn't he? Oh, he certainly does.
Charlie Sampson was such a legend on the Hill, and he was such an influence to all the young cowboys and girls. And in earlier cuts of the film, we actually told Charlie's story a lot more than we did, but we found out it was such a big story that it really just deserved its own space because it commanded so much gravity. But I really wanted to bring Charlie into this film because I thought it was so important, and he's such a legendary figure for the Hill. And so I'm really glad that we were able to tie him into Chris's
I
story.
think he wants more out of life. He has a goal, he has a dream, so that keeps him focused.
So the first belt buckle I won was in 2011 at BPO.
I mentioned that this stylistically is a Western film, and before every shoot, what we do is I had printouts of all these Western films, these images that I thought really spoke to that Western style. And so I would go through those images with the camera crew that would show up to each shoot. And I'd say, well, I think we could find, these 20 shots. And so I'd let everybody see that. And then we would just go and kind of attack a scene. And we're all shooting in our own spaces, but we all have those images in our mindset, and so that's how we're able to find shots like this, deep focus, and shots that are shot through side view mirrors, and that's what ultimately gave this film that quality.
In a couple minutes. Oh, good morning. I always wanted to be a veterinarian when I was coming up as a kid. But living in this community, you gotta work to eat. So I just gotta go with what pays the bills at this time.
Calvin is a guy who ultimately feels trapped by the job that he has. His horse, Jazz, is his freedom. So visually, we wanted to show that trapping. And so Calvin is a man that you always see will be shot through stuff, boxing him into corners and into bits of the frame. And when we see Calvin's interview, it's in between these two walls.
I mean, I was pretty much riding horses in the city that I was from with people just like me. And when everybody was riding,
I did that on purpose. I really wanted to set Calvin up in this kind of frame where he felt boxed in, so that later, when we see him ride with Jazz, we have a stark visual difference of this kind of openness and this freedom that he feels when he rides Jazz.
Oh, you got a horse I can borrow? So he get a horse. Now he need a saddle. So
I call Fat Pack the glue of the film. He's the subject that ties all of the stories together in this film. Fat Pack is somebody that, that everybody knows each other. All of them know each other, but Fat Pack really has a relationship built between Chris, Guan, Calvin, and everyone else. And so Fat Pack's closeness, and there's Sid as well. Fat Pack and Sid and Calvin were always like a unit when I was filming. So they did everything together, from buying a horse to some of the rides that we'll see later on in the film.
Like what, 1550?
I think it's about $2,000.
I don't know what he does to have the money for it, but he finds a way. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take. I like the black one then.
Among all the cowboys that were in this film, Calvin and Jazz's relationship had this bond that I just didn't see with anybody else. Calvin loved this horse, and he told this story that we're actually about to hear in an interview about the first time he went riding. He told this story about 4 or 5 times throughout my experience with him, and so that just goes to show that with all the cowboys that have been hearing this story, I'm sure they've heard it dozens and dozens of times, because I for one heard it at least 5 or 6 different times. So here we are on this ride, and I wanted this to be visually as open as as it could make it. I think we actually filmed that the DMV scene either the day before or the day of this ride. So we were very conscious of how these two scenes were going to play with each other and how spatially open we wanted this particular scene to be.
The first time I went riding with him, we was riding down Broadway. And as we was riding, Fat Pat kept looking in my face. And he could see, like, when he looking in my face, I'm looking like a little kid, I'm having fun. And I'm just cheesing. I mean, my smile's so big, but I'm having fun.
One of the artists that was used in the soundtrack of this film, this is a Federale song. And this is called Appalachian Falls. And Colin from Federale actually allowed us access to the song and actually let me play around with some of the stems so we could loop some of the stems so we could have it better adapt to not only this scene, but this subsequent scene where we say goodbye to the hill. This is a scene that we wanted to remind the audience of this place, of this culture that was here, that had been built up, and really see some of the lives that had been changed from this place, because right around the corner, you know, it's all going to be taken away from them.
This dirt right here has been here for over 70 years. Horses running on it, shitting on it, pissing on it. Kids learning how to ride and falling and hurting themselves and then trying again. It has changed people's mentalities through the camaraderie of the cowboy lifestyle. Then the fire changed everything.
A plume of smoke climbs into the sky as firefighters work to save several
So
horses trapped.
this is the scene where we're finding out what happened to the hill. And there's a lot of information that happens in under 4 minutes that we get through in this scene. This was a really difficult scene to cut because of all of that information, because of all the hearsay, and because of all the various things that were at play for this hill stable getting shut down. Ultimately, we wanted to show all sides of the story. We wanted this to be a well-rounded representation and to have everyone's thoughts, including the city's thoughts, including animal welfare, because there were so many opinions on what happened.
The owner, he was racing his horse.
The match racing was something that we had heard from so many different sources, and it was something that we had followed a great deal in this film. We ultimately chose not to talk too much about it, but we wanted it to be in this scene.
We gotta deal with the bullshit.
A June 17th fire uncovered numerous code violations at the Athens barn.
We wanted to progress the story. We wanted to let the audience know what was happening, but we also wanted to do it in a responsible way that showed all aspects of what people thought about this place.
We recognized that it was just not safe for the animals. The property was too far gone.
A couple of stalls got burned, but they used that against...
The score here by Corey Allen Jackson is quite amazing. It was a very difficult score to do. There are so many different tempo and mood changes within this one scene, and he just did a tremendous job adapting to this story and helping us emphasize different emotional beats and emotional through lines of this very intricate scene that ultimately started out in a very shocking way and ended in this kind of nostalgic lonesome place.
He said the right shit to get the niggas to move. They moved.
Of course, here we're finding about Tuckaruck as well. And it was a really difficult line to walk in how to represent the owner of this property that we weren't able to get his voice in this. We tried for several years to include him into this story, and we just never heard back. We never heard anything.
People can get off the trouble on the streets and onto the back of a horse.
And so here, Corey's music has now taken on its final tone change, and it leaves us with the feeling that everyone had. It was a feeling of sadness, it was a feeling of loss of hope, and it ultimately is how we culminated the first act of this film. So here we are in the next act, and we're starting out on this field in Baldwin Hill in Los Angeles. And right away, there's one of the symbols I mentioned, the oil derrick that's moving, that's kind of foreshadowing Guan coming up in the next act. First of all, I just want to say, I just re-listened to the first act, and it seemed like I was pretty subdued. So I apologize about that. I'll try and be a little bit more alert. It took about 4 years to shoot this film, and over the course of those 4 years, I would pretty regularly return back to the hill. So we amassed so much footage of this place kind of in ruins and saw it degrade in ruins. So there's a little bit of that footage.
At the tone, please record your message.
Hello, Mr. Tuckaruck. How are you? This is Guan Featherstone. I'm calling about your property located on...
So this is a scene where Guan is kind of taking the lead in trying to find out what are his options for restoring the hill. This is kind of his setup. We use this as his setup for Act 2, and this is kind of charting the course that Guan is going to go on now for the duration of this act, which is trying to put the pieces together to rebuild the hill. He also finds out a piece of news at the end of this that is going to kind of propel him into that journey. One of the interesting things about this scene is that when we first edited it, it didn't involve Guan's children. And one of the things that I learned through the process of making this film, this was one of them, and this came from Jason Rosenfield, one of the editors that worked on this. When he started looking at these scenes that we had put together, he saw all this footage of Guan interacting with his children. He said, why aren't we using this? And he said, you're not a father, are you? And I'm not. And he said, you know, this is something that you can only understand if you're a father. And we should be showing this connection that Guan has with his children as much as we can, because he's a father and this is very much part of his life. So that is a little moment that was brought to that scene that was part of that whole collaboration between director and editor.
But this is the storage yard. This is all storage materials. This is where we store materials. The objective is to get all of this cleared out.
Another thing that Jason brought to the film was the levity and emotional ups and downs to the second act. The second act is kind of a tough one where you know, you have a lot of stories that are set, but really the craft of storytelling is finding those high points and finding those low points that each one of the subjects go through. And this was definitely a high point. And I remember when we were out there filming Guan, how excited he was. And so Jason really brought that excitement onto the screen with the music and just the way that it was cut.
One day it's gonna come back, man. If not here, somewhere. Yeah.
One day I'm gonna own this railroad, and everyone will ride for free.
Huh? Yeah, see the other side? See all the other kids at the other one?
Here's a bit of a window into Calvin's family life that we hadn't seen before. Calvin's story is kind of a love triangle between his family and his lifestyle with jazz and riding through the streets. And so in this scene, what we're trying to do is really kind of fish out and flush out what Kendra and Calvin's relationship has been.
I first met Kendra when I was at the skating ring. My family really liked her. And then, so we got into a deep relationship. And
Calvin was very open the whole time with me about his personal life and his private life with Kendra and his more public life out when he's writing jazz. This phrase right here,
Calvin is Calvin. He likes to...
Calvin is Calvin, is a phrase that we heard a lot.
That stable is his life.
He's a guy that is going to do what he thinks is best for him at all times. And of course that's can be very selfish. But as we'll find out later in the film, there is a way for Calvin to kind of still make the right or the honorable choices that he does come to make.
Get your boat back up.
So just more of a technical point. In these scenes right here, we were filming Calvin and Fat Pack and Sid riding through the streets. And the reason why they're so smooth is because of some technology that we had to employ, but we were still working on a very tight budget. So normally what you would have in these situations is something called a Russian arm, which is a very fancy piece of equipment that gets you that smooth look. We didn't have the money for that, and so we kind of jerry-rigged our own Russian arm using my Nissan Pathfinder, and we had a grip construct speed rail covering the whole car and use kind of some jerry-rigged gyroscopic technology to create that very smooth, floaty kind of feel, and it worked really, really well.
The talent thing, watch it here. Beauty, all this beautiful muscle right here, look.
I don't see horses out here like...
This scene was always a part of the edit. However, what it was about changed. We had a lot of footage of Calvin flirting with other girls and taking girls on rides, but we didn't really focus on it because we actually just didn't have any sort of conclusion for it. It was something that didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't until later in the edit when Calvin called me and told me that, because of everything he'd been doing, Kendra left him, and it forced him into a decision of choosing between his family and his horse riding. So at that point, we started going back through every one of Calvin's scenes, and we started looking at them differently, and we started framing them differently. And they resulted in the scenes that you're now seeing in this final cut.
That just come with the territory. Up, and away. Because when you ride and people just look at you different.
I think that line just speaks so well for Calvin's personality and his background too, where He's a showman, and he wants to be seen, and he really got that with jazz, and that was part of the connection that they had.
You got some bulls coming in. All right, real quick. We going in the truck? Yeah, we'll go there.
The weekend before last, I went to Fort Mojave. Before that, Queen Creek. The weekend before that, say Scottsdale. The weekend before that, Tucson, and I've been in Arizona quite a bit.
All right, boys. Y'all line up.
This, I would say, is probably one of my favorite scenes. It's a real intimate look into the relationship that Chris and Trey and Derek have.
Me and Chris, we knew each other from the hill. He kind of paved the path, you know, like, I wouldn't say he gave me the idea. I always wanted to ride bareback horses, but he made it like, man, this shit could really happen. Like, it's doable.
I think one of the things that I heard most when I was filming this was the importance of mentors on the kids that grow up in South LA. The fact that these three men have these bull riding legends to look up to, and then in turn being mentors to themselves and to generations underneath them, I think that's a really important thing that was happening with this group of guys. For me, I was always touched by that, and so that's why I wanted this scene to kind of have this resonating feel.
Just keep on riding, keep on going.
This scene is an important scene for the film because it talks a lot about perceptions, and Fire on the Hill is really about perceptions and how we perceive groups outside of our own immediate community.
People do look at us differently, even though I don't feel any different, you know what I'm saying? I'm no different than any other bareback rider in the world. They all put their pants on just like I do. But, I mean, perception's a killer, you know?
Well, the sun is out, the sky is blue, and the stands are full.
When we shot this, Chris and Derek and Trey, they were the only ones on the circuit from Compton, and they were definitely outsiders. And so we knew at some point in the film that we needed to address this topic and this issue. And it was difficult because we knew that this was going to be highly scrutinized in how it was represented and how it was portrayed.
Gangbangers, you know, shootings, killings, the murder capital.
Going into this film, there was some level of expectation that we would encounter some discrimination or prejudice out on the rodeo trail. After all, the very nature of bull riding is subjective. Half the points are on the cowboy, half the points are on the bull. So there is room for subjectivity to come into a score. When we addressed this or brought this up to the Cowboys, across the board, they all said, yeah, you know, I can imagine that happening, and I might have been around that happening, but by and large, The rodeo is one big family, and we're all trying to help each other. And so when we were addressing the issue of race in the rodeo, I wanted to be fair to their interviews and what I heard from them. But I also wanted to address the fact that they are outsiders. So ultimately, it took us these two scenes to really convey that message in a very thought out and thoughtful and very delicate way.
We are different, but at the end of the day, everybody in the rodeo arena helps everybody, you know, like they embrace us like anybody else. There are cowboys that are assholes, but for the most part, most of the good ones that you actually want to be around are as humble as they come.
It wasn't a bad spur over.
The camaraderie is different. They understand what it takes to make it to that level.
I always loved how we're seeing Guan outside of the hill in his work environment as a construction worker. You know, Guan's a builder, and so what better way to kind of show that as the physical manifestation of a builder, and also have a scene where he's trying to rebuild the hill.
The horses that are there are utilized for the program. Right. It ain't about building the hill up like it was. It's about creating something totally different, totally, you know, totally different. Mm-hmm.
He's hustling, you know. He's looking at buildings, trying to rent it out so they can have fundraisers, so that they could rebuild it. They want to really put the stables back and, you know, make it like a fun place where you can bring your family and your kids, and you're not just sitting there in the street with some chairs and a table, you know.
This is one of the many barbecues that the Hill had to try and keep the community together. I think the scene shows just how different Guan's mindset is to the community that is at the Hill. I think a lot of people lost a lot of hope, especially as the years dragged on. And what set Guan really apart was that he always believed, and he was such a believer in this. And it was not always easy for him.
You want my penny? It's a done, that ain't gonna happen.
Everybody else saw it as just a dream. But you have a person like Juan who's willing to take some losses, to chase a dream. As for us, we don't necessarily jump on board because shit, we've never learned to dream.
See what I'm saying? Your ideas
Nobody has stepped forward and said, okay, let me just commit to trying to make this happen.
You ain't got enough money to try to do anything with this. I got 10 grand to put up on this. Now what? Ain't no back.
It's just like we're stuck and complacent on this street. I'm not happy on that street. And I sound crazy for wanting more. I'm not trying to give.
Guan really talks about breaking a cycle and breaking cycles in the streets, and that in his community, breaking cycles in his community. And that's something that harks back to when he was in Germany, when he saw the collapse of the Berlin Wall. This is ultimately why we included that footage in the beginning of the film. It speaks so relevantly to what he's talking about here.
Fake-ass doctor niggas. And one of them bullshit-ass lawyer niggas. He was a real nigga. So he got to die in the street. This is what they got us aspiring to be and become. Gets bred in you. And it's a cycle.
And now here comes the example that Guan is really talking about.
It all happened on the 400 block of East 138th Street in Willowbrook.
Gerard was the son of Jennifer McClendon, who we work with. And he was somebody who would come by the Hill and was regular at the Hill. And he was really good friends with Chris.
He's real close to Chris.
A lot of people, I think, feel that if the Hill was still open, Gerard would still be around. And Gerard, became an example of what Guan is fighting against, is trying to break that cycle. And unfortunately, he fell victim to that cycle.
During that struggle, he was shot.
If someone in the cowboy world dies, we'll put our black pants, white shirt, cowboy hat, and we'll ride our horses.
That's my boy, man. We start riding together and all that. All of us all start riding together.
When we filmed Poway, we had no idea that this was the same day that Gerard was shot down. And so we had no idea of the gravity that Chris was being faced with during this rodeo. Later in editorial, we wanted to bring that out. We wanted to try and get inside Chris's mind. So I worked with Lawrence Everson, the sound designer, a lot on this scene. And we were trying to find ways to kind of bring what Chris's mind, what's going through his mind out into the world. And so we ended up using a lot of gunshots, clicks, those types of sound effects within all the gates. Here's an example of a calf roper right here. Listen to the sound effects.
Our judges are in their position. Calf's out of the chute.
In that arena, having any kind of a negative thought is dangerous. Those thoughts bring down.
Again, this is just kind of subtle ways that we were bringing that into it, but I thought it was pretty effective, and it kind of worked to build and build tension into this scene.
Only one is qualified thus far.
Wyatt, one of the editors of the film, did a great job in cutting this scene together and really trying to bring the kinetic nature of bull riding into it, and also really getting us into the mindset of Chris as he's sitting down onto this giant 1,200-pound bull to go out of the gate while all of this background noise is going on in his mind.
He just needs 8 seconds and he can win this thing.
Yeah, let's go.
They're looking for the nod.
Come on now, Bird. Come on.
This is a pivot in Chris's story that it turns from being kind of a man trying to get into the championship of rodeo, becomes a lot more internal, a lot more of a headspace that he's now going to be grappling with and he's going to be fighting up against.
have the top 15 in the world going at
Bull riding, I found out as I was filming this, is such a mental game. I had no idea. It just seems like, you know, such a physical activity. But it is a mental game, like a lot of sports are. And so this scene really shows how detrimental it could be to an athlete whose head is not in the right space.
Chris Bird is working as a bucket shoot, straps in for the ride. And he's out of the chute. Whoa. That's gonna knock him down in the rain.
You get down on yourself and you just fall into what you think is a slump. And you just like, man, dude, I'm bucking off. Maybe I just need to stop, you know, and just take a break.
It's also a turning point, not just for Chris's story, but for everyone else's story. This is late in the second act, and now all of the subjects are going to be going through some of their toughest times. And we don't know if they're going to overcome it or not.
I don't think we're gonna see much crowds though. Hey.
Well, when we go to 98, we gotta go back there.
They was looking. They was peeking.
Going back that way.
I was in between jobs, but I make a little bit more money now. So, you know, I've been partying a lot.
I said it, I meant it. All that money I spent it. The life of the party, I might have been sorry, but now I can say that I'll never regret it. Let's ride.
This is probably one of the most interesting nights that I've been out on when we were filming this documentary. They do this. They have these huge gatherings where they'd go riding in the street at night, and they'd just take off and ride through the center of the street. And one of the things that I learned very, very early on in making this film is that there are so many parts of South LA that are zoned agricultural, meaning you could actually ride horses in the streets. So when people see this film, they say, how are these guys riding through the streets? It's because the zoning rules that are in South LA, that's one of the reasons why that makes this community so unique here. By the way, a lot of people think that's Calvin's arm, her. It's actually not, it's her own. Something you only see when you've watched the movie hundreds of times. I mentioned earlier that, you know, there was a turning point at the section where all of the subjects will be faced with kind of the most darkest struggle. And this is Calvin's. It's very subtle, but the tension between Kendra and Calvin had been building up through the process of filming them. And this is one of the last moments that we had with them together.
Hello, Mr. Tuckeruck. Not to bother you, sir, but it's imperative that
Weaving the three subject stories together was something that was difficult to do. And ultimately, the guideline by which we were able to do it is through emotions and where they were emotionally. Like Chris, like Calvin, this is also Guan's kind of dark night of the soul moment.
You know, the frustration that lies.
This was a moment that I recut, and it was during a time when I had been cutting this film for maybe a year and a half. At this point, it was very personal for me, and a lot of what Guan was going through, I felt, I was going through as well, trying to get this film done. And I remember I cut this scene, and I woke up the next morning, and I showed it to Jenna, one of the producers on the film, and I asked her, is this a scene about Guan or is it about me? And ultimately she said, I think it's about both of you. And then I asked her, I was like, well, should I recut it? Is it a little weird? And she said, no, I think this is perfect for what's going on in Guan's story, and you should leave it in there. So we did.
Our next item up, members, is item number 6, and that is regarding conditional use permit.
Good morning, supervisors. It's my great pleasure to come before your board today to present one of the most dynamic master planning efforts happening throughout the county at this time. The improvements at Magic Johnson Park will make this a model park with new features and additional recreational opportunities for future generations to come.
The city council meeting was a place where you really saw a lot of the old guard come out. A lot of the cowboys, after the Hill shut down, a lot of the cowboys moved outside of LA, and most of them returned for this because it was such a big deal in the community. And it was quite heated at times.
Absolutely ridiculous. Horses should never be a line item and take huge chunks of monies that could be put to better help and to better serve the basic issues of human life.
I've lived across the street from the park for 45 years, and I don't want to wake up
we really didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And so it was one of these moments where you're trying to capture as much, but at the same time, you're trying to figure out, how is this going to play out?
In the improvement plans for Magic Johnson Park, then shame on you and shame on the Board of Supervisors.
It's, again, a place where we're able to pivot emotionally and use this gentleman right here, Justin Turman, to influence Guan and his story and his journey.
We have kids that can load a gun at the age of 6.
He was ready to throw in the towel. And I think, after hearing Justin's amazing speech right here, that just sent chills down everyone's spine. It really gave a lot of hope back to the Cowboys, and certainly gave a lot of hope to Guan.
Every time I get on a horse, and that's freedom.
Here's someone who had his cycle broken, and so I think Guan saw that as a signal to keep going on with the work that he was doing.
When you're fighting your head or something, you just need to go back to basics. Gary LeFew, he's the man to go to.
Storytelling-wise, this is now where we're starting to turn around, and we're starting to build ourselves back up.
I heard, a lot of good things about him.
Gary LeFew, he's the guru of bull riding, and he's very well known in the community, in the rodeo community. I was blown away how focused he was just on the mental aspects and the mental components of bull riding. And that's what really sets him apart as a bull riding instructor.
On your butt right there, that bull's pretty low right here. Where your butt goes, you're gonna go. So that's why we go to bars. It's where the butt goes, cowboy goes.
Gary's a guy that has so many different anecdotes and phrases that he says. We called them Garyisms throughout the editing of this.
Any thinking will just get you 1 second behind. One more time. You want to get into what they call hyper body, quiet mind. You want to be, your adrenaline running, everything's on go, but your mind is very calm, very collected, very centered.
And it was a wealth of lines that we didn't know where to go or what to choose. And ultimately, this was what we landed on that really not only applied to Chris's story, but to everyone else's as well.
Whether you make up your mind that you can do it or you can't do it, either way, you're right.
This is the sibling scene to what we saw at the beginning of Act 2, where Guan finds out that the hill is up for auction. I remember when I found out about that auction, how happy I was, because it gave the film a definitive ending. And either way, either outcome, the film was going to end there. And then we found this out.
Oh, so it was redeemed, so he wound up paying the taxes. Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
When we found out that Tucker had paid the taxes on the last day that he could possibly do it, I didn't know where we were going to go with this story. I mean, it could have gone on for indefinitely.
Last time I talked to him, he said that he was going to liquidate, sell everything, and go to Disneyland.
So when we heard that, we started investigating this, and we made the decision right then and there that maybe we should just go and try and find him.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
It looks like an island. Yeah. When I go over there, stand in front of his house, and I know that somebody's gonna come, the police or somebody, I said, that's my Uncle Nick, he's in there.
LAPD says a man walked into the family's car and just opened fire.
I always viewed this meeting of Guan and Tucker Rock, what a standoff moment. And so that was something that I was trying to bring to this scene with how it was shot, the music. I just thought it was going to be, this kind of OK Corral, wider face-off moment. And of course, real life sometimes doesn't give us what we want, but turns us in another direction.
Hello? Mr. Tucker Rock. Hello? Mr. Tucker Rock. Mr. Tucker Rock. Hello? Excuse me, sir. Have you seen Nicholas Tucker?
And the real discovery here that Guan makes is he really finds out the man behind the name, and he finds out that this is not the guy that he had thought it was the whole time.
I just peeped in the house, man. Big, beautiful house, big, beautiful kitchen. Trash everywhere. It is horrible. This guy, he's not gonna play ball. I don't see him giving a shit about anything. It's just crazy that this guy has all this going for him and he's out here living like this.
You know, in this moment of doubt and just yet another veer in the road, Guan is faced with the same question that Chris was faced with. You either decide to make it happen or you don't. And either way, you're going to be right.
Hello? Hello? I said, we're going to go to the DMV in about 30 minutes.
Calvin actually called me, I think the morning this scene was shot, and told me about what was happening in his life.
Hello? Kendra, she moved to Vegas.
We'd already cut the film, a second cut of it, and so we were well into editorial when this point in his story came along, and I had a choice of, do we include this or do we not? And I grabbed the camera and went down and filmed this scene with Calvin. It ended up changing the course of his whole story.
It wasn't about the horse, it was just about what I was doing with the horse. I wanted to be a player, and I just got caught up with what I was doing.
You know, but this is where Calvin is faced with the consequences of Calvin being Calvin. He's posed with a decision in this scene. You know, he has to decide between the lifestyle that he loves so much and his family that he also loves.
Well, eventually she said, if you want your family, you'll come out here with us. I'm moving to Vegas today.
Wow, what happened?
Just my family moved out there, kids, and my wife. So I'm out to, it's gonna be different for me, just about to move. She wanted
a fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start. And
this is Kathleen. This is on her property in Richland Farms in Compton. And she was, you know, when the stable burnt down, she let a number of the Hill Cowboys stable their horses here. And later, when we were finished with the film, she invited us to have a community screening of the film. And so we actually had a community screening right in front of where Calvin is standing right now.
Riding was a part of me.
Footage, this shot right here is actually a shot that was taken on the first day that I went on a ride with the Cowboys back in 2011.
But at the end of the day, it's my decision, and I gotta do what's best for me.
It's always been one of the iconic shots where Calvin is riding and leaning back in front of the traffic behind him. That was just such a moment of joy with him and Jazz, and I thought it was a good way to close out their story.
For today, we could be heading out to Ventura, California. They got a rodeo.
Whereas Guan had his final standoff with Tuckerock at the house, this is Chris's final standoff at Ventura.
Just gotta finish them out, and I will.
We wanted to have a searcher shot because it's Western after all, and so this is our searcher's shot in the film.
Friends, welcome to the Ventura County PRCA Rodeo. We ask that you take a moment with us to bow your heads and share.
This announcer is Stephen Godert. He did several of the rodeos that we filmed, and we ended up meeting up with him and having him record some ADR afterwards. And one of them was this prayer. It's based on several prayers that we heard, but Chase one of the editors, and I also tweaked it a little bit so it was a little bit more applicable to some of the subjects and themes in this film.
Make the last ride on the great rodeo above. We'll have found peace and comfort knowing that we have rode true in our hearts and left nothing behind but the footprints of our journey ahead. Welcome, rodeo fans. It's time to get this party started. Tonight, you're going to watch some of the top PRCA cowboys and cowgirls compete to qualify for the Circuit Finals Rodeo. Some will walk away with gold buckles, and others only with shattered dreams. Get ready, because it's rodeo time!
Get on those motherfuckers.
I really love the music in the scene. All of the composers, everybody who worked on the music of this film, they all had a hand in this scene.
Are you ready for some bull riding?
We wanted to have a lot of cameras capturing this, but the way that it worked out is we could only get 2 cameras in. So this is all covered between Brad, the cinematographer's camera, and myself that was behind the shoots. Ventura was really a make-or-break rodeo, not only for Chris getting into the regional finals, but also for us filming. We had to make a decision of when we were going to stop filming, and this was the rodeo that I had all previously decided was going to be our last. So there was a lot of stakes, not only just for Chris, but also for us. And everybody was crossing their fingers that he would make this ride.
Cowboy, get set. Go!
So cutting back and forth between the 2 rides, we were able to really stretch this moment out. And that clock was actually not filmed at that rodeo. That clock was actually a clock I later borrowed and just fixed it up to a corner of where we were editing and inserted it into the scene.
Molly, right at the buzzer.
Film-wise, story-wise, this was so fortuitous that something like this happened, where it wasn't a sure call. They didn't really know if Chris made the ride or not, and so they really had to get the judge's report. As a filmmaker, that was just gold for us because we could create moments like this.
Well, he was there.
Of course, Chris makes it and makes it into the finals after this, and this was a perfect way to end. That hey, good ride, Chris, is Wyatt, the editor, and that high fives Brad, the cinematographer. So getting a couple of the crew members into the film. This has always been one of my favorite scenes. And we never knew where we would have it play in the film. It actually was in several different places in earlier cuts. But ultimately, we were able to find a good home for it at the end of the movie, which was very, very fitting. This is Ray. He's actually the first one that I met when I came on the hill, so I'm really happy that he made it in the cut.
We are to rebuild. We need to come back up with a direct focus.
It's amazing how organic this moment came out. We really didn't provide any direction or ideas of what they wanted to talk about. We knew we just wanted to capture a fire barrel moment, and it really quickly turned into people's experiences of the hill, how important it was for them, and really, if it was going to come back, what it should be.
But I know that y'all are the answer. I'm looking at everybody. I'm looking at all of us. We are the answer.
There's the jack pumps again. And this is the first of our kind of 3 wrap-up epilogues. And really, one of the things that we were always thinking of throughout the process of making this film is what does being a cowboy mean to each one of these subjects?
Regardless of my feelings and discouragement of not getting any support, it's still something I'm gonna do.
I think for Guan, it's about resilience.
If it takes me till I'm 70 years old.
The main reason why I thought a jack pump really represented him.
I can't do it there. I can't do it there. But if I can build a place and I'm helping 10 kids a month and it's impacting them in a way that they want to go out and be a positive influence to the world, I've done something great with my life and my time.
A jack pump is something that rain or shine always keeps going. And to me, that's Guan.
I mean, I'm looking for a change. Go out there to make my family work.
For Calvin, I think being a cowboy is about making the right decisions. And it's really fitting that he ends his story at the airport and on an airplane, which is kind of his symbol of freedom. Now it's the object that's returning him to his family.
Everybody want to be at the top, you know?
And Chris's symbol was the train.
Just gotta keep on going.
And I think what being a cowboy to him means is one of perseverance and grit.
Wherever the wind blows. Wherever the wind blows.
Just love that line, wherever the wind blows. It's such a cowboy line. And this is, you know, I've always wanted to end a film with them riding off into the sunset. And I think this is a perfect way of doing that, where Chris is riding off to the next rodeo, to the next adventure in life.
This had to be anticipated. I had to be. This had to be anticipated.
These credits were added after the festival run, and there was such a strong support for these guys and their stories that Guan was able to start Urban Saddles, a nonprofit. And even Tucker Rock came out and got in contact with Guan and offered his support. So I encourage anyone and everyone to visit urbansaddles.org to find out what's going on in the programs that are being offered now. I just want to say thanks to everyone for listening if you got this far. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate all the support over these years. I really hope you enjoyed this kind of 90s style director's commentary, and hopefully you got something from it. thanks for watching and enjoying this film. Take care.
It's on. Now you wanna dumb up, so I put my middle thumb up. As I'm looking for the come up, Star Spangled, I'm pledging my allegiance, sending out my minions, taking over regions. Presidential partners come along for a reason. It's changing season. Only way it gets better if we all do better. Put in our conscience, uplift to do better. Get your game up, you'll probably even groove better. Make moves better. A clear mind catches all the clues better. Avoid fools clever. I'd rather create the game and make all the rules, man, than follow in an army full of fools, man.
Lost in the sand. The ship has sailed, it's sunk at last, and fire burns on the hill. The hands are dealt, the die is cast, but the question it plagues me still. 'Cause I can smell the burning grass. Who lit the fire on the hill? Fire on the hill, the fire on the hill, the fire on the watch the city burn while the hills survive. I drank my wine and I ate my fill while the fire rose up to the hill. But who's the one who threw the match? The question it plagues me still. I thought I knew, but here's the catch.